Okay.
All right, so my name is Katie. As Dr. Nee said, I graduated from the Master's in English program here in 2022. And prior to that, I got a bachelor's degree in business. And I actually did AmeriCorps, which is a really cool volunteer program. And that's a whole other conversation we could have, but AmeriCorps is a really cool program. And I did that out west. I ended up getting educational award money that was going to expire if I didn't do something with it. So I knew that I loved English. It was something that I thought, well, let me go and explore this passion that I'd had and see where that takes me. So it was a little bit of kind of a heartfelt decision I made to go back to school and study English. So I think it's really cool that you kind of made that choice a little bit earlier on. But I had a lot of jobs in between, seasonal jobs. I worked outdoors and did a lot of like physical labor. That really wasn't for me, I found out. But once I got into the English program, I began to really love the analysis, learning about different pieces of writing and how they were connected, how they're connected to different historical events. I was actually working as a computer programmer. And so I mentioned I did AmeriCorps, I worked outdoors, kind of doing this physical labor. That was crazy and just didn't suit me. My dad worked in IT and gave me some advice to go ahead and explore maybe programming. And it's really funny because after I ended up going through my English program and then looking back, it was so much like writing. And it is, I mean, they call it writing code, and I remember sitting at my computer one day writing code and being like, wow, I'm a writer. Like it happened, but not in the way I expected. So it was just a series of kind of events in life takes you in a certain direction. And for me, I ended up in this IT position and then studying English as well. So it gave me an opportunity to see how there were some similar ways of thinking. There's this analysis, there's attention to syntax and grammar in a sense. And we can talk some more in detail about that if anyone's interested, but there were similarities between the skills and things that interested me in IT and English. And then as I was nearing the end of my graduate program, I panicked. Didn't know what I was going to do. And I was really fortunate that the company that I work with reached out through the English department and said they were seeking someone who had an IT background, had some experience in IT, and also strength in communication. And I ended up getting a job there. It was really amazing, and I work as a business analyst. And so I actually work in the IT department and then with the rest of the business. So as a business analyst, you work kind of with one foot in the IT world and one foot with the business. And you analyze change. You also sometimes analyze legal documents or privacy policies, things that can be really dense and heavy. And my education in English helped me absorb a lot of this really dense information. I was actually really surprised that came in handy, but it did. And with kind of those like analysis skills, you're also communicating, so you have to read these documents, you have to understand changes in software, and you have to be able to pull out the key points, right? So that's also something we do a lot in reading essays or writing essays. And so there's a lot of distilling information to communicate between a technical team and a non-technical team. And then I also write IT documentation, so that is documenting the changes that we're seeing in our software IT department, documenting the requirements that the business has of the software, what they need. And so you really get deep into processes, to listening to people, interviewing, and distilling all that information. I think it really comes down to that, and being able to put that information into words is something that English majors have a lot of practice with. So I found that I was actually very surprised by the number of skills that I ended up using being in IT and having this communication heavy and documentation heavy role as a business analyst. And one thing I do want to mention as well is that when I was in the master's program here, I got involved with the Digital Humanities Institute on campus, and I loved that. So I recommend, if you're curious, to check out the Digital Humanities Institute. If you have even like a little bit of an interest in technology or data, like websites, anything like that, the Digital Humanities Institute is a really great resource for learning how English or the humanities and technology come together. And I worked on some really cool projects. It was one of my favorite parts about the program, and I would recommend just checking that out if it piques your interest at all. And that did help me kind of merge into the IT world, which was something I didn't expect when I chose to study English.
Katie, could you share how you became a programmer?
Oh,
Because
sure.
I think most of us feel you probably have to have a computer background.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I have no computer science education whatsoever. I have no computing background. I'm actually incredibly low tech. Like, I barely set up that camcorder. But I have a certain mindset or way my mind works that I think analyzes information in a certain way. It's almost hard to describe, but my dad recommended that I check out programming. And once I did, I felt that it was kind of interesting. It was kind of fun to be putting pieces of information together. And again, it's like that synthesizing that we do with our essays and constantly making connections in English classes and connections of ideas. And I think that that applies to programming. And if you're curious, there's lots of classes online you could check out for different languages and just kind of peek at it, because that's what I did, and I ended up getting an entry-level position that was willing to train me. So I learned some programming and learned some more IT concepts and things like that. So it was a little bit unexpected, but a very good fit, I found.
And that was with the school system in
Yeah.
St. Johns County.
Yes, it was at St. Johns County School District. And so usually smaller companies like that, or it's a government position actually, they have smaller IT departments. So sometimes smaller companies will be more willing to train, and they want to know that you have your passion and maybe just some natural aptitude. And you can get into IT, you could get into programming without having any kind of computer science education or math or anything.
Wow, it's amazing.
It's true. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
So thank you.
MJ?
Oh, I guess I'm up. Let's see. I graduated with my English BA in 2014, and I actually didn't panic then because I knew exactly what I wanted to do, which was I wanted to go and teach. So I became, over the course of that summer, I took a job teaching 7th grade language arts at a local public school, charter school actually, a public charter school. And I swiftly found out that this was not the way for me. This was this was not the way forward for me. And that was then my moment of panic, because I had spent my entire bachelor's program thinking I'm going to teach. It was all that I'd ever wanted to do. I never had a plan aside from teaching. And so when I burnt out very quickly at that school and I knew I had to quit for my own mental health, there was then this period of like just picking up some substitute teaching jobs, trying to figure out what's next, you know? And you'll hear a bit from Lindsey because our stories are kind of tied together. We went to school together and we also worked together because at a New Year's Eve party after I'd quit my job teaching, I ran into Lindsey. Lindsey's like, what's up? I was like, I'm unemployed technically, except substitute teaching, which is $70 a day, you know. And Lindsey let me know that the company that Lindsey was working at was hiring at the time. And so I was like, well, sure, why not? I didn't really know it was a copywriting position, SEO copywriting position. I didn't really know what that meant necessarily, but I went to the interview. The interview went really great. They actually called while I was driving home to tell me to come start on Monday. And I was like, oh, perfect. I love this for myself. But I joined that company then in early 2015, and I am still at that company. It's been almost a decade now. The company has changed a lot in that time, and I've also moved up in the role. But getting ahead of myself, the role at that time was essentially, the company then was called Web.com. It's since changed names to Newfold Digital. But their main business that I was involved with anyway was they do domains, so website domains, and hosting for websites, but they also did website design, which was the department that I was underneath. And so it was mainly small and medium businesses, so think like a lawn care company, a dentist's office, maybe a small law office, maybe a woman who is selling jewelry out of her house. You know, it could even be that small. But businesses that needed to get started with an online presence. Maybe they already had a website, but it was kind of old and not that good, or they'd never had one before. And so they would come to us to kind of have us design and write a website for them. I am not a designer person, and luckily at this company, it's kind of like a factory line, you know? Somebody sells the product to them, someone else does an interview with the customer, they put together the information, it gets sent to me or my team, we write the content based on the customer's interview, then it goes on to the designers and then kind of further down the path. And so this was really great for me because after I burnt out on teaching, I didn't want to talk to people anymore. I wanted to be in my cubicle and write on my computer. And so this kind of segmentation of the role was really perfect for me because it allowed me to just focus on what I did best, which was writing. Aside from my plan to be a teacher, the only other like career I'd ever entertained was writing or being an author of some sort, but we can't all be Stephen King, you know, it's hard to make a living that way. And so I already had a writing background from anyone local might know the art schools here in town. There's La Villa School of the Arts and Douglas Anderson School of the Arts. I'd done the writing program there, and I'd also done a few writing classes at UNF. And so I was quite confident in my writing skills. So even though I didn't know about copywriting specifically or SEO, what's SEO, I was like, I'll learn on the job, it's fine. So to kind of come back around and answer what is SEO, does anyone know what SEO is? It is search engine optimization, and the basic concept is that search engines like Google, they have different factors for what they consider good and bad for a website. And so when you build out the website and when you write the content for the website, it's important to do it in a way that Google likes, because otherwise no one's ever going to see you in the search results. You want to be on that page 1 of Google because no one goes to page 2 of Google, you know. And so our business would kind of help, like we're going to put together a site for you that can rank on Google and so on. It might rank on Google, no promises really, but it's hard out there for certain industries. But yeah, that was what I was doing, was working with this like very high production environment where we would do, I think back when I hired, it wasn't unusual to be expected to do like 10 sites a day, basically. Oh, yes. Which sounds like a lot, but once you got kind of going at it, it really wasn't that bad. If you're somebody who can take information and kind of read the information, here's the details, and think, these are the important things to highlight. This is what this customer is really all about. This is what their customers like about them. This is the key information that needs to be on the website. Bam, I just wrote a paper. You just wrote a website, you know.
Important to add maybe that these are very affordable websites.
Yes, they're small sites.
The content requirements were often not more than 500 words. It was, you act like we were, being held there against our will and forced under terrible conditions.
Well, that's why I said 10 sites sounds like a lot, but they were small. Really they were small sites.
They were very small, 500 words-ish, not a lot, right?
But as I was at the company longer, I start to kind of do work for a bit more complex customers, people who are paying for pricier products, maybe bigger websites and so on, and more involved SEO campaigns where they need more content written for them, because it's not enough just to put your website up. You need to be continually updating it for Google to be like, this site is fresh and relevant. They have new stuff always. And so I kind of merged onto another team within the company that was focused more on that aspect. And overall, as the company changed, the roles kind of all became one, where there's just one team of copywriters who was handling anything written content coming through the company was basically coming through us before moving on to other teams on the production line. And after, let me think how to summarize. I feel like I've just been at the same company, so there's not a lot to say, but I've also done other work within the company since I've been there for a long time. I've also done internal communications for the company where they need to get out a message to all the employees about a certain promotion or a certain event that occurred. Usually kind of fun stuff like holidays and like, we did this charity event, how fun, to like write up the content to be shared to other employees. I've also done a lot of writing for training courses, where if we need to onboard new employees, this is the documentation of like, these are the standards, this is how you do this, here's examples, don't do this. I've done a lot of writing for that as well. Enough to where for a while I was considering branching out my career path and doing that instead. But I don't like change, which is why I've been at the same company for nearly a decade. And then most recently, a supervisor position opened up for my team, and I decided to go for it. So now I'm not really on the writing portion of the job anymore. I'm now leading the team of writers. And so my role nowadays is more about making sure that the team, beyond just like fulfilling their day-to-day requirements, but also, are we keeping pace with the industry? Is the work that we're doing, is it good value for our customers? How can we improve what we're doing? How do we incorporate AI into our process if we do? I've been doing a lot of investigation into AI and where it's viable and where it's not viable. And I'm very much being a stick in the mud at my company where I'm like, I don't trust it for good reason. And I have data to prove it, you know. But doing that research gathering, doing the testing about the AI and figuring out if we're going to put into the process what makes sense. Because a lot of companies nowadays are kind of having this, this crisis of, now that AI is here, do we jump on board, do we not jump on board, etc. So I've been kind of guiding the policy within the company for my team on that. And then also providing industry training for the copywriters. So you can kind of think of it as understanding certain genres, different industries of business. Their websites are a bit different from each other's. It's kind of like a dentist website is maybe a fantasy book, whereas a law is maybe a sci-fi book. And they have their own conventions and their own little rules that you might not notice right away, but they are different. So to kind of help the team understand, you know, what is recommended for these kinds of industries, what things do you need to look out for, what might trip you up, providing that information to them and training them on that and answering their questions. And that's really about the sum of it. There's a lot of other things I can go into detail with if anyone's curious, but to finish out, yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Lindsey?
Let's see. My name is Lindsey. I don't know why I said that, everybody's. I've been introduced 4 times and I still said my name's Lindsey. I have a very similar background to MJ because we attended the same middle school, high school, college, and workplace. We attended the same workplace. I had finished writing programs at Villa and Douglas Anderson and graduated thinking, this is about all I'm good at. I think I should probably continue to do that in college. And so in college, I came here to UNF and I thought, let's take a few psychology classes to see if I have any affinity with that because I'm interested in psychology, but I majored in English. And it turns out there's actually a lot of overlap between those 2 subject areas. And psychology is really depressing as well. I don't know if any of you guys have ever taken any of those classes. They're pretty heavy. If you're not in a great place, a state of mind to accept that information, it can be difficult. So I decided on English pretty early on. And over the course of those 4 years, I did not really think about what I would do with that degree up until the last semester of senior year when the panic set in, right? And so I went to 2 of my trusted professors here in the English department. At that time, it was Mark Ari and a professor, I don't know if he's here anymore, his name was Dr. Ludwigson, and he was teaching a horror fiction workshop. And so I had been with him, for 4 or 5 months, writing these dreadful stories, talking about the most grotesque subjects. And I went to him because I trusted him, right? We were very close at that time. When you write about your deepest, darkest fears, you do tend to get close with people, right? And so I said, Dr. Ludwigson, I don't know what to do. I'm going to graduate soon, and I'm only good at one thing. And I don't know what if there's a career for me out there. I can't. You don't graduate and become a best-selling author, right? And so a lot of writers probably would like to publish a book and become a best-selling author, but it takes time. So he said to me, well, while you're waiting to become a best-selling author, why don't you try applying at this local .com company where my wife works? And his wife worked at web.com. And web.com was a .com company, which just means that they specialize in selling web domains. And they also offered kind of like this boutique website writing service, which you described. We do templated websites. Kind of like, have you guys ever made a Wix or a WordPress or like a Tumblr even, as a very loose, like, you have maybe some knowledge of HTML and like templated websites. And so it was very easy for us to, pop in the images, pop in the writing, do a little bit of SEO magic on the end. And these are all different departments, of course, but we were in the writing one. And so I applied there. It was very easy. I think I have no doubt that all of you, as you are now, could apply for that job. And because I was hired alongside a high school student. She was fresh out of high school. She had gotten a little college credit while she was in school, but she didn't have a degree. She didn't even have an associate's degree. She had a little bit of college experience, and she was such a strong writer that she was hired alongside me, who had a bachelor's degree in English. And I'm sure we'll talk more about this later, but I want to emphasize that because so many of the jobs that you can get with your degree depend on your soft skills as well. And being a strong writer can absolutely make up for a lack of experience and even a lack of degree at times, right?
Yeah, we've discussed before, it's very hard for them to teach somebody how to write. They can teach you like the other stuff like SEO or like whatever platform they might be using, but to teach someone how to write is a big investment of time that a lot of companies don't necessarily want to do. So if you're already a strong writer, you're already off to a good start.
And what makes a strong writer? Reading a lot and writing a lot. Literally, if you're already doing those two things, you are well on your way if you want to have, I think, a job in any of these industries. But I applied at web.com. I was hired very easily. I worked there for 5 years, and I moved from the tier 1-ish, like a standard copywriting job, up to a leads position, leads copywriter, which was more sales focused. And then I got really frustrated with the lack of opportunities at the company, so I started to look for other jobs. And I was applying locally at this time because COVID hadn't happened yet, and remote work was still a very difficult gig to get, right? In the past, you could not get remote work unless you had already been with a company for a long time, or you had a very niche set of skills that they couldn't find, and they opened it up to national availability. This was before remote work was really, really common. So I looked locally. I worked for this was the beginning of my affair with a bunch of creative agencies, right? So I worked at 3 creative agencies since then. The first one was a political consulting firm, which can really kill your spirit if you're not resilient. Politics is very difficult to work in, but it's a good seasonal option if you're interested in just trying it out. No commitment, right? After that, I worked, when I got sick of that, I applied to a franchise development agent, an agency specializing in franchise development, which is basically, you guys are probably familiar with a franchise, like our clients were Massage Envy, people who maybe owned the chain, but then would sell individual units to people locally who wanted to buy and run them, right? So that's a franchise. So I worked there for a while, and it was just boring. So the common feature in all of these job changes was that I was bored, and I enjoy change. Unlike MJ. I was very frustrated because I knew that I was a good writer, and I felt like I wasn't being challenged at any of these places. And it's all marketing copy, and so marketing copy, marketing sale, marketing copywriting, you can do a lot with it, and there's a lot of psychology in it, and there's a lot of fun you can have with it if your agency trusts you to make those calls, right? And so at each agency I had worked at, and beginning with web, including up into where I'm at now, as a writer, you can find yourself in roles where you are working closely with designers, salespeople, art devs. There are roles where you'll be very siloed off from your team, or you'll be very in the mix with them. And in agencies, creative agencies, which is a type of place that copywriters can work, in agencies you get a lot of variety. It's very fast-paced, it's very fresh, it's fun, every day is something different. It's incredibly stressful sometimes, but if you enjoy having something new to work on every day, and you like to work with people, and you like to have a say in how your writing is being designed, how the client is receiving what you're doing, how we're representing ourselves, what we're selling, how we're selling it. It's fun to work in agencies. I just want to give that disclaimer. I was bored, and so this is what I wanted to do. And so today, I've been working there for about 3 years now. Today I work for a Reno, Nevada-based destination marketing specializing creative agency called Noble Studios.
Called what?
Noble Studios. And they're very small. We're only about 100 people big. We have offices here in the United States and the UK because we have a couple different time zones. But I work completely remotely. I go there twice a year for our all-hands meeting and holiday parties, which are really fun. And we specialize in destination marketing, which is a subset of marketing in general that just deals with a destination, as the title says. So the destination may be a city, it may be a state, an entire state. Here in Jacksonville, we have Visit Jacksonville, right? That is a DMO, a destination marketing organization. And a DMO is basically a conglomerate of stakeholders and sometimes people who work in the local government who come together to advance the often monetary interests of the group for tourism. So we want tourists to come to the city. We want people to come and visit us. We want them to spend money at local businesses. We want them to come to our events. We call it heads and beds in the industry. We want to get people to come and stay here. So some of it's B2B. It's business to business work. So we serve the state of Nevada's travel organization, which is called Travel Nevada. We do the city of Santa Monica. We do Lake Tahoe. We do San Luis Obispo in California. And most recently, we're going out to RFP, which just means we're pitching to San Diego Zoo. So these are all destinations or experiences where it's interesting because I didn't know that this subset of sales existed, right? This is big sales. It's not just selling a product. A lot of creative agencies sell products. That's what I was doing for our franchise clients at my last agency job. We were selling visits to a nail salon, visits to a massage place, sports equipment, which was a franchise that somebody tried to start and failed. But it's big sales. It's just sales in another form. But it's the most fun I've ever had. I really enjoy my job. I get to do a lot of stuff that is closely tied with sustainability, diversity. We do a lot of pride events. We do a lot of charity work. Agencies there's when you work in marketing, there's two ways you can go. There's agencies and then there's in-house. You can be in-house or agency side. And in-house, you may be an employee of that business, just working for the business. So if I went in-house for Visit Jacksonville, I would be on their staff writing stuff for Jacksonville, or they could retain a creative agency like mine, the one that I work at, right? So we're vendors, we're partnerships, we're working on their behalf. And I know a lot of people in my industry have gone in-house when they get tired of agency life because it can be very fast-paced. But while you're young and hungry, as they like to say, it's good to challenge yourself, and it's a great place to build a lot of skills fast. Because I know if there's anything, we were talking about this in the car the other day, but if there's one thing I know about working with writing, having a career in writing, is that you have to do more than writing. You have to have more skills than just being a writer. So you also have to sell yourself, so it's important to have that big portfolio of skills to have, because then you can talk your way into a lot of jobs, which is what I did. And I'm glad I did. And I think most of my employers are happy I did too.
Yes. No, you do well.
Yeah.
Great. All right, we're going to open it for questions. What would you guys like to know more about?
Sure.
Me, please. Well, thank you. This is just something I think is on the minds generally of a lot of people graduating with a degree in writing. And you actually mentioned it before, something that you're facing is AI in the industry, right? Of course, this has to be brought up.
Yes.
Whether or not you think it is becoming a bigger and more either concerning element in your workforce, or something that you could easily work with and you're not too worried about, and you can look at recent graduates coming out and be like, don't worry about it, kid, just go forward, don't ignore it practically? Or do you think this is something we should prepare to negotiate with?
It's a complicated question. I would say that when AI really, I should specify generative AI, like AI that generates content. When generative AI really kind of burst onto the scene in a big way in like 2022-ish, around then, there was a lot of like, am I gonna have a job next year? Like there was that kind of feeling, even for someone like me who's been established at a company for a long time. And a lot of it is gonna vary from industry to industry, company to company. What I've kind of seen with my experience of AI now and like how it can be integrated into a work process for a writer, and also where it fails short and where there really is that need for a human person to come in, is that any company that's not stupid, which, how to say diplomatically, there have already been a lot of companies who tried to go all in on AI and it backfired on them in a big way. I know there was a big news story just yesterday about Mattel accidentally having an explicit website on their packaging.
Wicked.com.
Yes,
Don't
Wicked.com.
Here, anyway.
They put this Wicked.com onto the packaging of their like Wicked like Barbie dolls and everything, and it was from some AI process that they hadn't double checked and everything. And so there's been a lot of big news stories like that where it's just like there's a lot of risks with AI. Now, AI is also evolving a lot at a quick pace, but it's also, I think, inevitably going to start to be coming to heads of like a lot more legal cases that are going to stop its growth in some ways. And ultimately, I think it has a lot of limits in what it can and can't do, which is a long way of saying that there's always going to need to be human intervention with AI. A lot of what I'm having my team work with right now is like, we're going to try out this like AI platform. Where is it bad? Where is it flat out wrong? Where is it just kind of generic and the customer's not going to like it? That's where we need the human being to come in and give it the personal touch, make sure all the appropriate details are included, make sure there's no link to an explicit website accidentally winding up in there, you know. So that kind of like, it almost becomes maybe less of a copywriter and more of a copy editor to that point, but that kind of job still exists. What I will predict is that this kind of job that Lindsey and I started off with, like that entry-level job, they're not as common anymore, because whereas before maybe you needed to hire 10 copywriters to get through the work volume, nowadays with AI, maybe you only need 5, you know, because they can get through stuff a bit faster with this AI generation than going in and editing it and personalizing it for the client. So there will be, I think, less opportunities, but the opportunities are always going to exist. And I also think that if more companies are utilizing it for in-house rather than wanting to go agency, you know, they might have actually more positions opened up where like, we don't want to do an agency anymore because we use AI, but we need somebody to be editing the AI, you know. Yeah. That could be something that a business decision that some companies make.
Excuse me.
It's just, at this point it's really hard to say because it kind of burst onto the scene in a big way, made a huge splash, everybody panicked. But also, not really a lot has changed.
It's true.
You know?
There was a big hullabaloo about it, and
yes.
So far, I mean, I'll when it's my turn, I'll say more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you if you wanted to add anything before I did.
Yeah, so I work in the medical device industry, so we're incredibly regulated. Mm. So the use of AI in our company is like, we have to do thorough testing. There's
yeah, I can't do compliance yet.
No.
Right, exactly. So yeah, we have to be compliant to a lot of regulations. So MJ mentioned like it varies with industries. So in my industry, I mean, we touch it with a 10-foot pole. So I mean, it's really cool to hear about a company that is using AI, whereas I don't really have that opportunity in my own work. So I'd have to go outside of that to learn more and to seek that. So if you're thinking about a particular industry, if you like things that are stable and highly structured, you might want to look for being in the healthcare industry or banking, right? These are highly regulated. as opposed to a marketing company where you're going to have a lot more technology and a lot of change. So you can also kind of think of your personality, and one's not better than the other, it's just kind of what you're comfortable with. So something to consider as well.
That's my answer as well. It depends. It depends, right? There's a lot of, it depends on your context. There are a lot of different factors to consider when you're choosing to use AI. Which one you're using? Like, do you guys use Claude at all?
No, we don't use Claude.
So there's Claude, there's ChatGPT. There are a lot of generative AI models out there that claim to do different things, but really what generative AI does is it automates a certain portion of your workflow, and automation is has been a big topic even before the advent of AI to begin with. So when you automate your workflow, it kind of necessitates, like, we're not paying as much attention to it, which is why it's difficult to bring into situations where regulation and compliance are really important. And also, because I'm a brand copywriter, in my industry, we do not want to automate, because let me think of an example. Consider when you use, and maybe you guys have done this as well, when ChatGPT was invented and became available, I was curious about what it was capable of, and I went to it and I asked it to write me something in the style of an author. Depending on what author you may type in, that person has an enormous body of work that model has been trained on, legally or otherwise. And so it's probably conceivable to write a short story in the style of Stephen King, since he's the man of the evening. We'll go ahead and say Stephen King or Walt Whitman or whatever author has a big body of work, because it's trained on those things, right? So it's more familiar with those. And so as a brand copywriter, my job is to create brands. And so we don't want to create a brand that has been made already, because we are selling something totally new. Every time we go to sit down to think of a new campaign for our client, we create guidance, which it's called a brand book. We create guidance for them on every conceivable level, from design to font we're using, to what social media platforms we're using, how we shoot their videos, how we shoot their photos, and how we write their social posts, their website content, how we create their ads, their voice. They have a voice, a tone, a style that's all their own. It's like a person. And so this person has never existed before, so AI cannot generate this person. And so my job cannot be outsourced to AI yet, because of the highly custom nature of the work that we do. We use AI to brainstorm. We use AI to organize, sometimes more pure SEO value, because when you write, a lot of pages on websites are specifically designed to just ping high in Google, and it doesn't matter so much what the style of that page is. But for your front page copy, for your social posts, for your billboards, for commercials and scripts that you might hear when you're listening to your podcasts, those are highly custom works. And so AI can't do highly custom yet. It can get you part of the way there, and it does sometimes. I use it for research, like, hey, tell me really quickly what are 10 places in northern Nevada, that have unusual winter activities that I can write about for my blog, so I don't have to go hunt them down. But then when it comes to actually writing the blog, because the voice of the brand is so distinctive, only I can do it, because I helped create that brand. I don't have a body of material to feed to AI to help train it to write that brand. I've tried and it can't do it yet, at least as well as I can. So it depends on what you're writing. I can tell you that, at least in my field of work, it's not useful for that yet. Also, be a really good writer, because AI is not a really good writer yet. So if you're a really good writer, it's going to be hard to replace you with AI purely, right? I can see more templated websites, a la 2014 era web.com going out, because they can't afford the big budget brand, distinct brand voice that me and my agency create. So if you paid $30 to web.com in 2014 to write you a website, AI could have gotten that out. Gosh, I would have gotten through dozens and dozens of websites a day back when I started.
We've had huge efficiency gains,
yes.
What Lindsey's describing about the need for a unique brand voice, it's not so much true for the customers that we work with, because we're working with customers who, they're just getting started and they don't have a big budget, they are not able to afford create a new brand.
San Diego Zoo level of
they're not.
Advertising campaigns.
We're talking about the mom and pop dentist clinic that you went to when you were a kid. That's what we're talking about.
$100 budget versus millions and millions of dollar budget. So it depends on where you're working, what you're writing.
But even for these customers, we can't trust the AI on it, because these customers also have their own unique features. They don't have a big budget, but we still want it to sound like them, and also to be the base accuracy of do they even offer the service that the AI thinks that they offer? And so that's where that need for the human intervention, even in my line of work, that is a bit more templated, that is a bit more like, it goes out quick and it's like a cheaper product. We're like the McDonald's, you know. We're putting out a lot of food for a small amount of money.
It's a little higher quality.
It's
than
higher
that.
quality than McDonald's.
But it is an assembly line process.
We're a Five Guys.
Yes.
We're a Five Guys, you know. It's that kind of budget, and it's that kind of like, we're gonna get to you quick. We're gonna do a good job, but you know, we're not spending a lot of time on any individual customer, which is another big difference, because you have like these long-standing relationships with a client, for good or for worse. Whereas like, if I like a customer, it's too bad because they're gone quickly. And if I don't like a customer, thank God they're gone quickly. I don't have to deal with them for very long. But even for these customers that we're only working with them for a short time, like, we don't want to put the wrong information on their website, and we don't want to give them something that they read and think, this doesn't sound like me. Which is why we still have a team of writers. That's why my job and my team didn't just like vanish in the Thanos snap of AI, you know. We're still around.
I just remembered this. We hired a junior copywriter earlier this year, I want to say, and I was directly involved in that process, and I remember that we did ask if she had any experience with AI, and if she was able to use it for brainstorming. And well, actually what happened is that we advertised a position as liking a candidate who has some experience with AI, because we're looking to implement that at the age. Everybody is. That's the problem, right? Is that everybody's looking to implement it, even if they can't really see a straightforward use for it. They're trying to get some sort of gain out of it, which is sometimes fruitless.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
that's what I've been guiding at my company. Is
right.
like, are we going to use this and how? And
Everybody
et
seems to think
cetera.
they can get something out of it, but in reality, the applications of it probably haven't reached smaller companies yet. Maybe big companies get more use out of it with bigger budgets, but a small, and my agency's quite small. I mean, we're of similar, you're bigger than me, even though we have bigger budget clients, right? Like, we're more of a boutique experience, but we advertise the position with a request, you know, if you have this experience, it's nice to have. And when she finished, we give her a writing test. We give all of our clients, this is something you'll experience with a lot of, if you apply to agencies as a copywriter, they'll ask you to do writing tests. Some of them are quite long. But we didn't give her any instructions on whether to use it or not, but when she was finished, we asked if she had used it. And we asked her to explain from beginning to end, like, how did you use it? What did you use it for? What prompts did you feed it? Blah, blah, blah. It wasn't forbidden from the process. And she certainly had written a good deal of it on her own, we could tell, because AI just can't do the level of quality and customization that we asked her for. But you'll probably be asked if you do apply for jobs. If you look at Indeed for copywriting jobs, agency jobs, more of them list some experience with AI.
Are you accustomed to writing prompts for AI? Do you know how to edit the input from AI? Do you have a good eye for when AI is telling you something that's just wrong?
Whether or not you'll actually be using it.
Whether
because
or not you'll actually be using
you might
it.
get hired, get your feet on the ground there, or get your feet in your living room with your laptop if you're remote, and find out that they don't want you to use it at all.
Yeah.
And you don't end up using it. Because it's certainly an option for me, and there are certainly people around me using it, but how do you say this without saying egotistic? If you're a really good writer, it just kind of frustrates you.
Yeah.
You know, if you're comfortable with writing and you're comfortable in your skills and you have a firm grasp of grammar and spelling and punctuation, and you also are confident in your ability to speak in whatever voice you're being called upon to speak in, you don't need it. You know, why would you add that extra step to your process if it's not making you faster? And fast is the name of the game, at least for us.
I think in general, the core question of like graduating with an English degree in the year 2024, whenever you do graduate, and with AI out there, this big scary boogeyman.
It's not that scary.
You mentioned earlier, like, you can't be just a writer, you have to have other soft skills and so on. So whereas AI may be able to write like something generic but passable or whatever, do you have the skills to kind of market yourself and also to spice up that AI content if that's what the company is wanting you to do? And if you're concerned about like, you know, can I go out into business writing with a degree, and is my job going to exist in 10 years of AI and so on? The job might change, but it'll probably still exist, is kind of what I've been hearing from other people in different work environments, different industries. The AI did change their job, but it's still around. They just kind of adjusted their process somehow, or maybe they focus more on another part of the job instead of that part of the job that AI is helping with nowadays. But you should always be worried about entering the job market because it's stressful. and it's tough to be
It
out there looking
is.
for a job, but I'm not super concerned about AI anymore.
Okay.
I think more and more companies are realizing as they test the fit that it has a lot of limits, and it's probably going to continue to have a lot of limits for a long time.
I remember people were excited about it because they said, oh, I can have it generate all this writing for me. I can have it generate a story for me. If that's the kind of story you're settling for, then that's not that person's not a writer.
And most companies aren't willing to settle for that kind of quality,
Right.
which as they investigate and they found out like, oh, this is the level of quality I can expect, the company's kind of either slowed down or limited where they're going to use the AI.
So if you invest in yourself and you do your homework and you build a good portfolio and you get those HubSpot certifications and you just invest in yourself as a writer, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really don't think so.
Okay, thank you. It's good to hear from people who are in it and not from students being like, I wonder what's actually going on out there.
When you start panicking, this doesn't need to be one of the things you're
Yeah,
panicking
okay,
over.
cool.
Panic over other things, but not this.
Yes.
All right. Anyone else?
Speaking of panic,
It's a safe space, go ahead.
I graduate next year, and what I want to do, I think, has vastly changed. I originally wanted to be a technical writer, because I was coming from like a physics background. But the more I've done like my comparative literature classes and like handled analysis and like done my research for like some symposiums, I kind of want to shift into like museum curation or museum research. And so I know that's a lot more scarce when it comes to job security. Did you guys have an idea, like, after graduating, what you wanted to do? Like, what did the panic look like? What did the imposter syndrome come in? Like, should I be scared? Should I lock myself in a padded room?
Technical writer wants to answer?
Yeah, so I'm not a technical writer, to be clear. That is a very different industry than what I work in. That's just such a cool, interesting passion that you have. I love that. So from my experience with the digital humanities at UNF, I have learned that there's a lot of technology in the museum world, which might seem a little bit surprising because usually it's going to be the physical artifacts that you're protecting. But there's also this really interesting field of technology that's growing there. And I think encourage you to continue following your interests. You can go to the archives at UNF and talk to the librarians here, and you'll probably be surprised to know all of the tech background and skills that they have. And of course, coming from my perspective, I'm going to advocate for having technical skills such as like light programming, right? So there's SQL, XML, HTML. You don't necessarily need to have a lot of those skills, but if you can learn a bit of programming, understanding software, how software works, how databases work, because librarians and museum curators are actually going to use a lot of that technology, then you're just broadening your skill set to be able to find other jobs, maybe in IT, where you can then build your job history, some of those soft skills, and translate them into museum or archival work. I definitely recommend like trying to build some of those technical skills so that you have some more options, because like you said, it's a little bit more scarce to find those positions, and leave room for being curious and for growing. Yeah,
I would recommend looking at museums, like both locally nearby and just like museums in general that would be cool to work at, and look at their careers page and their open job postings, and go through and imagine, like, can I see myself doing this job? Like, not do I have the skills right now, but can I imagine myself doing that job? And then anything that kind of piques your interest, like especially if you kind of see that kind of role exists at various different organizations, to then kind of investigate, what would I need to do to get my foot in the door? You know, is there, like, should I go on for another degree? Should I try getting in at an entry-level job somewhere else in the organization and try to transition in over? But just that kind of like, what job roles can I imagine doing? and how would I get one of those jobs? I can't speak to specifics because I don't know much about museum curation. I do know that like it's a relatively small field, so it's a bit tough, and there's often specialized degrees, but there's a lot of value to getting your foot into the company at a job that's not your end goal job. But then once you're in, it's a lot easier to be like, hey company, I am also interested in this. Would you consider paying for me to go back to school so that I could get?
Who does that happen to?
Yes, my company's paying for me to go back to school, which is why I'm in the MA program right now.
Nice.
But yeah, once you're in the door at the company, even if it's not what you want to be doing like career-wise, like you're like, I want to be a museum curator, for example, but you get in the door at like, maybe you're doing content writing for the museum, because any big-ish business has a need typically for some kind of writer, whether it's a content writer, a copywriter, a technical writer, you know. If you get your foot in the door that way, and then you convince them, hey, pay for my degree, pay for that graduate tuition, you know, then that could be your way into, you know, getting to the more specific job that you're really after.
It's okay to go broad at first. And I told you guys, it took me 5 years to decide. I was fed up with that place, and I thought, I'm being wasted here. I need to go find something else to do. It's okay to start broad. And as for the imposter, most people cannot write. let's put that out there. Most people don't read, and most people don't write either. So a lot of the readers are not writing. So you already have this great benefit. You already have this great foundation that's going to serve you no matter what you do. Because every job can benefit from, the ability to communicate. I really think of what all three of us do as a level of translation, right? It is absolutely translating things so that other people can easily access and read them. And that extends to so many different fields. So you already have a really broad skill set, even if you might not already know it. It's okay to start broad. And I have a younger brother who's 18. He just started college. And what I told him is that sometimes it takes time to get to where you want to be. Sometimes you have to work a job that you're not super enthused about, and sometimes it takes a while to find your feet and to cut your teeth and get your confidence and say, I've outgrown this. I'm done with this. There's so many jobs out there that you will surely find one if you continue to apply one that fits you really well. And it's okay to be rejected, and it's okay to never hear back from them because there are so many. Just start throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. And for you, personally, I would absolutely email a local museum, somebody who works in archives or somebody who's ahead of something, and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm a student at UNF. Can I ask you some questions? Can I come visit someday and talk to you? I think they'd be psyched.
Yeah.
They'd be really excited to hear from you.
You can just pick their brain, how did you get this job? What kind of jobs exist at this organization? You know, make those connections.
And when you're applying to jobs too, it never hurts to just email somebody, on their contact us page, look at who works there, see who has the job that you want or is adjacent to it, or your superintendent, email them, say hey, what's it like working here? I want to know more. It puts a name to your face if and when you decide to apply. They're oh, this is a person. Those are the soft skills that I think everybody should have, but especially a degree as dynamic and stretchy as this one that can be lots of things, is putting yourself out there for sure.
Yeah, you can do anything with an English degree, frankly. Employers like to hire people with English degrees, but it's a matter of knowing how to sell the skills that you have as an English major. But what you learn in an English degree program can be made to fit a lot of different things. It
Absolutely.
can be, you can emphasize the information synthesis part of the degree if you focus more on that comparative reading and so on. If you focus more on the writing, you can kind of emphasize those skills. I've interviewed a lot of people in my time, and English majors tend to be the top of my list, and not just because I'm biased towards them.
They're really well-rounded.
They're well-rounded, yes. It's a program that really gives a lot of soft skills that people may not develop in other majors, that maybe they come with more technical expertise, but a company is often willing to train the technical expertise as the things that they can't train that are a bit harder for people to fill in if they don't have them already.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Don't listen to what people say and oh, an English degree, what are you going to do with that? A lot of people told me that who are also not doing so hot. So take that, naysayers, It's a big joke. What are you going to do? What is it? What do you do with a BA in English?
Yeah, what do you do? A BA in English? Yeah.
A lot. You can do a lot with it. Don't let it scare you.
Okay. Yeah, I heard that a lot from my family, and I was well, and then I was I want to be a tech writer, and they're what even is that? I was well,
When I was in my senior year talking to my horror fiction professor, I didn't know that this field even existed, the field that MJ and I work in. I didn't know it even existed.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't.
Right.
Just because you have a job that is niche to other people, that is often hidden, which is how a lot of writing is hidden, because number one, the work is undervalued, in my opinion. But number two, it's just the nature of what we do is often other people take credit for it, or it's not our place to take credit for it. When our stuff appears on a website, when it appears on a billboard, it doesn't say underneath it, written by Lindsey Chapman, this beautiful ad brought to you by Lindsey Chapman, right? It says it's your agency. And so people don't see us there working behind the scenes. I truly think that the visibility is just down here, and that's why a lot of people don't really think, what are you going to do with that English? Are you going to be a teacher? Like, number one, teaching's great and fine, and it's very difficult to be a teacher, and we should have a lot more respect for them. But number two, a lot.
Yeah.
Just because you can't personally see it doesn't mean it's not there. You're going to be fine.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I think your job path really speaks to, like, just because you haven't heard of something doesn't mean it doesn't exist, you
Yeah.
know, and doesn't mean that you can't be getting paid nice money for it that spends just as well as, I don't know, firefighter money, you know?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're at our time, and thank you guys for coming. It's so much good to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so
Having
much.
us over in Oregon or something, like how would you change this? How would you do with a limited budget? Like
Yeah.
all of these exercises are going to help you think like somebody that they want to hire, even if you've never had that job before. Agencies appreciate that kind of initiative.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be hungry for it. That's the word. The buzzword is hungry.
Yeah.
So what could you share the title of the book again that you would
Hey,
recommend?
Whipple, squeeze this.
Hey Whipple?
Yeah, WHIPPLE. Hey, Whipple, squeeze this. If I could, anybody who wants to work in sales copywriting, it's extremely comprehensive.
Okay.
Have you guys seen Mad Men? No.
Yes.
Yes. that's a lot of the kind of copywriting that I do.
Okay.
I'm not a madman, and I'm not a bad person like a lot of those people are, but that's the type of sales copywriting that we do, is what they do in Mad Men.
Okay. Okay.
You said that. I mentioned it because you said it.
Spinnaker,
Yeah,
of course,
yeah.
is always looking for people to write stuff, and it's good to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
To build your skills here through an internship. I know we have internships with Jacksonville.com. And so to build something so that when you leave here, you don't feel like you're empty-handed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do that for organizations you're part of too. If you have time to volunteer for your church or your community clubhouse or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, people probably will like that.
You're welcome. Good night, you
Have a good
guys.
night, guys. If anybody wants portfolio help, you can also email me if you want.
Thank you.
I don't know if you have my contact information. You
I
have
have
my
your
contact
contact
information. Did anybody else receive it already? Or
No.
is it, I can share it if anybody wants to email me for like,
Mm-hmm.
if you need a reference. No. Maybe, I don't know you like that yet, but like show me your qualifications. I can help.
Yeah.